Hi, I'm Natalie Stevenson. I'm an assistant professor at Flagler College. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you to UCDA for hosting the conference online this year. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate and learn from other design educators. So this presentation will discuss how two approaches to interaction design, human-centered design and activity-centered design, have been used in an upper-level graphic design course over a period of 9 years. In recent literature about the future of design, Meredith Davis and AIGA have called for design education to focus on the following areas. So according to this research study, future designers should be able to address complex problems, so working collaboratively in multidisciplinary teams to address complex problems at the systems level. The second area is aggregation and curation. They should be able to develop the ability to connect seemingly disparate content and services and help people navigate information. The third area is bridging digital and physical experiences, making the journey through a product or service experience as seamless as possible for users, and design for interactions at touch points. The fourth area is integrating core values or core values matter. So this is regarding design as a force for social change and innovation, developing strategies beyond the client model to sustain work. Then resilient organizations, or be resilient to change, is about adapting to change, structuring strategic conversations, innovating business models, and synthesizing research data. On down to making sense in the data economy is about understanding how technology is changing the world and designing for these shifting circumstances, and then being accountable for anticipated outcomes. So this involves conducting evidence-based research throughout the design process, applying user-centered methods, and building increased awareness of the implications of design. So Davis identifies the skills and competencies that designers need, and in the study she also articulates why, to be prepared for the changing context of professional practice. The remaining question then is, how can design education do this? So this paper addresses how I've tried to create the conditions for students to develop competencies in several of these areas in a particular course called Interactive Design. So I've taught interactive design for 18 consecutive semesters between 2011 and 2020. During that time, I have made many changes to projects, added new assignments, and used all kinds of different software, as I'm sure many of you have in graphic design courses. In 2011, the course was an elective called Web 2. In 2012, we made it a required course and renamed it Interactive Design Studio. And then in 2018, this would have been when Design Futures came out, we changed it from a 400 level to a 300 level course so students could take it earlier in the program. So this is the course description. It's an advanced studio lecture course about interaction design. We explore human-centered design and activity-centered design to develop concepts for interactive products. The projects involve problem finding, user research, concept creation, systems level thinking, usability testing, and the presentation of high-fidelity prototypes. We use a variety of software applications for interface design, prototyping, animation, audio, and video. And we explore contemporary issues affecting user experience and interface design as well. So as far as methodology goes for this paper, in addition to my observations as the educator, my research methodology involved artifact analysis and student feedback in an effort to achieve methodological triangulation. For the course, I used Dan Safer's book, Designing for Interaction, in which he discusses 4 approaches to interaction design. So this table provides an overview of those approaches. User-centered design focuses on user needs and goals The role that users play is to guide the design process, and designers translate user needs and goals. Activity-centered design focuses on the tasks and activities that need to be accomplished. In this approach, users are performing the activities, and designers' job is to create tools for action. With systems design, it's about focusing on the components of a system. Users set the goals of the system, and designers make sure all the parts of the system are in place. And then there's genius design. This approach relies on the skill and wisdom of designers to make products. Users are only involved as a source of validation, and designers are the source of inspiration. One approach is not better than the other. There are pros and cons to each. Safer believes that, so that's the author, he believes that the best designers are those who can move between approaches, applying the best approach to the situation, and sometimes applying multiple approaches even within a single project. In the course, students are given opportunities to apply multiple approaches, but that was not always the case. Back in 2015, my bias towards human-centered design was identified in student feedback. A student indicated interest in trying the other approaches that are discussed in this book. And I, as a result, tried to incorporate more activity-centered design and systems-level thinking into the assignments. So in interactive design, there are a range of assignments. Within that, there are 3 studio projects. You can see they're bold here. The first 2 projects differ quite a bit because they are intended to give students experience with 2 different approaches to interaction design. So the first project is a mobile app design project that mostly follows human-centered design with a little bit of activity-centered design sprinkled in. And then project 2 is called interactive edutainment. That's mostly activity-centered design with a little bit of human-centered design methods mixed in. And then the third project is the final in this course. Students create an animation about one of their concepts from the first 2 projects. That video can either be seen as a commercial to promote the app, or they could regard it as an app demo that demonstrates how the app would function if it were to be fully developed, or they could see it like a use case scenario that's illustrating how the concept would really benefit users. So the presentation is really going to focus on those first 2 projects out of these assignments. At the beginning of the first project, we talk about contemporary issues that are affecting UX/UI. Since interactive products like smartphones, social media, voice assistants, virtual reality, and augmented reality, all of this technology has been so rapidly integrated into our lives, it's necessary to pause for a moment to examine the positive and negative consequences of these technologies. We need to reflect on experience, ask critical questions, have thoughtful discussions, and address the problems that have been overlooked with this rapidly changing technology. With mobile tech, for example, concerns include digital addiction, platforms that encourage polarizing or adversarial debate, and negative effects on mental health. So what can design do to change this? Through the lens of design thinking, it seems possible to have a deeper understanding of the human experience and thus develop more humane products and services. But simply following a human-centered approach to design is not enough. In practice today, there exists a paradox of human-centered design. It seems that the practice of UX/UI is becoming increasingly quantitative. If the design process is reducing people as users to patterns of digital interactions and stats about economic behaviors, then the resultant products may be easy to use, but at what cost? Are the products good for humanity, or do they have harmful side effects? Has technology overwhelmed our human vulnerabilities? So how can design put the human back in human-centered design? This discussion builds the case for following a human-centered approach. The project involves students developing the concept for a mobile phone app based on the findings from user research. They select a person to be their user for this project, and I encourage them to choose someone that they'll have access to, that they can meet with, and someone who's different from them. And this difference can be that they have different interests or different views. They may be a different age or have a different major. And in response to the issues that I just discussed on the previous slide, I added the human sensitivities from the Humane Design Guide this year to impose some additional constraints. The sensitivities are like wicked problems that relate to ethics and technology. So students are to design an app that supports their user in one of the following areas. Could be emotionally, to help their user be calm, balanced, feel safe. Could be around attention, to help their user be more focused and mindful. Could be about sense making, to help their user make sense of a topic, learn about a topic, build context, feel grounded. Could be about decision making, which helps their user gain agency, purpose, to mobilize intent. Could be about social reasoning, which is about connecting more authentically and deeply and safely with others. Or it could be to support group dynamics, to develop a sense of belonging and community and cooperation. User research for this project is framed as a way to discover an opportunity for design. So this is problem finding. Students conduct an in-depth, semi-structured interview with their user, plus one other user research method of their choice. They plan the methods in advance, and for the interview, we critique their questions in class beforehand. They explain the purpose of the research to their user and make sure to get their consent to participate. And then they conduct the research, and after research, they create outputs like what you see here. Moving on to concept development, students then have to translate the findings from user research into a user-based app concept, and we use something called a definition statement to help with this. Students have to write a user profile, brainstorm a range of possible features, consider which of those features would be most appealing to their user, then research apps that deal with a similar topic. So that's similar to a competitive analysis. And then they craft a mission statement to ensure that the app has a clear purpose. This student's user was her mother, who's a quadriplegic, and she developed a concept called Wheelable for her mom to find accessible places. Students then develop a low-fidelity paper prototype which shows wireframes for at least 10 screens. This is a planning tool intended to help students determine a navigation model that will work with their content and to help them think through user flow. And it also provides a big picture view of their app. They conduct usability testing first with classmates in class and then later with their user, and we employ the Think Aloud protocol for testing. Branding for this project involves naming the app and designing an app icon. So they brainstorm a range of name ideas for the app and sketch over 20 ideas for the app icon. This example is for an app called Pan Pals. It was a social cooking app that encourages time away from your phone and spent instead cooking with others. It was intended to help with budgeting meals, so people could split the cost and host cooking events with their friends and neighbors at their house. And then students make 2 style guides to help define the UI design for the app. The style guides are built around their app icon, so you can see the student's app icon at the top, and around that they include color swatches, typography, styles for icons, and other imagery. And part of that style guide, I think it's helpful for them to create a sample screen to show how the styles will be used. And then they set up their design file. So this app was called Aux. It was an app that harnesses scrobbling to connect users through music. Then students build a high-fidelity interactive prototype of the mobile app using Envision, and we do another round of usability testing in class. So this example shown here is for a travel planning app called Trovort. It had a side for travelers, which you can see in the screens on the bottom left, and then a side for supporters, which you can see those screens in the bottom right. Students write content for the product page in the App Store, which includes an App Store description, coming up with the subtitle for the app, and picking keywords. This example is called Avoketo. It's an app to help users more easily live a keto lifestyle. And then the project culminates with a UX UI case study that articulates their process from problem finding in the beginning to prototype testing in the end. Now moving on to the second project. For the activity-centered design project, students are given a prompt to respond to, but with enough flexibility to still be able to do some problem finding. So this one follows an activity-centered design approach, which is about understanding behaviors during activities and designing products to support the completion of the activity. It's seen activity is kind of explained as a coordinated, integrated set of tasks, which are comprised of subtasks. There's an adage for this approach: the tool is the way, people will adapt. So it's a really different focus than the approach for the first project. For the prompt, students are presented with some research reports that claim that activity levels for kids drop after age 8 and screen time and mobile usage increases. So the challenge is to design an activity for kids ages 8 through 13 that's both educational and entertaining. In other words, edutainment. And we discuss the concept of stealth learning, where kids feel like they're just playing a game, but they're actually learning a lot. And as you can imagine, designing for kids gets many college students out of their comfort zone, but that requires them to research the age group. So that involves additional research around like developmental milestones, for example. They are encouraged to take a systems level view and design a suite of interrelated products that can be used in both the physical and digital environment. When selecting a topic or activity, I encourage students to think back to when they were a kid. What did they like or dislike? I do this so they have a point of view on the project. They're encouraged to play games, use their imagination, just be super creative, ask all the what-if questions as they develop their concept. So they think of an activity and then research the topic and create a pitch. So they pitch their idea to the class. For the pitch, I utilize the starburst method, which is also known as 6 questions. The questions are: what is the activity? So what will people be doing? Why would someone do this? What are they going to learn? Which products will you be designing? They do have to design a tablet app plus at least one other product. How is it different from existing products? So that's like a competitive analysis. And who is this for? Thinking both of primary and secondary users. So it could be teachers and parents or siblings. And where could they use it? So context. After the pitches, students are asked to analyze the activity and divide it into task and subtask to help them really understand the behaviors that are involved in it. Then they visualize the activity and show how the products are related. For this visual, it can take many forms. So it could be a task analysis or a flow chart like shown on the top right, or a service blueprint like shown on the bottom left, or a user pathway like shown on the bottom right. We incorporate personas to humanize the project. I provide a few, but I give students the option to write their own as well, so long as they are based on real people. Students also write a use case scenario that explains how their personas use their products to perform tasks in a specific context. Students develop 3 mood boards to explore a variety of creative directions. Each mood board includes color swatches, typography, UI elements like buttons, and sample imagery. A student from the Bahamas created these mood boards for Charney's Island Adventure. After the class critique, she combined parts of 2 different boards. You can see a screen from her tablet app is in the bottom right. Branding for the second project involves naming the activity and then designing both an app icon and a traditional logo. This example is a concept that requires users to help the main character, named Sketch, by drawing items that evil Dr. Eraser has erased. The app comes with an activity book and coloring pages. Students then create a paper prototype of the iPad app, which should include at least 3 tasks. We do prototype testing in class, and they also generate sketches to determine the specifications of the other product. For the more immersive concepts, the paper prototype for the app often ends up looking like a storyboard, like this example. This is for a concept that the student called Shark Week. It was an idea to teach young girls what to do in different situations when they first start their period, and it came with a period kit too. Students designed the interface for the app and graphics for the additional product. The top example is for Super Signer. It was an app that teaches kids sign language and then incorporated a flashcard. This almost looked like a frisbee into an outdoor game. And the bottom example is for Nounja, which was a ninja-themed concept to learn about language arts that also involved an outdoor game that had masks and ninja stars. So they're thinking about how the other product relates to the app, connecting the digital and physical environment. They create a high-fidelity interactive prototype of the app in Envision Studio. The student who created this example was bilingual, so Vamos Paco is a way for kids to learn about the Spanish language. Her 3 tasks that she built out were, the top right there is a map section to explore Spanish-speaking countries. So you see language in context. The second task was a field guide to learn about the different cultures. And then the third task is a backpack section that holds your passport and souvenirs that you earn. In addition to the prototype, they mock up the other product. Vamos Paco also included a board game that had cards and figurines that all was in a backpack, so that was the packaging. This project concludes with presentations in which students are asked to explain their concept, discuss the branding, articulate how the products are related, and then demonstrate how the activity works by doing a walkthrough for the class. This is the presentation for a concept called TerraForce. It was an adventure-themed activity that came with action figures and comic books. So in my paper, I analyzed the 2 projects to show how they address the 7 areas from AIGA's Design Futures project, but for the sake of time, in this presentation, I'll just touch on these primary benefits and risks that are synthesized findings. So for human-centered design, the benefits around that project are that it helps students develop empathy with users and then be invested in the project. And through the usability testing, they feel really confident that their design solution is useful, usable, and desirable. Now the risks with this approach is that since we're only designing for or with one user, it raises the question, is the solution appropriate for others, or is it too customized and complex? So we talk about that some in class, and how, hopefully the idea is meeting a specific need for a user that other people will have. There will be other users in the world with similar needs, and that it may address their needs. The activity-centered design project helps students think about the use of interrelated tools and technology to mediate activities, so that's good. But since user feedback is limited, it leaves questions. How usable is their solution? Will people adapt, or will the product be too difficult to understand, not intuitive? In summary, it is important that interaction designers know different approaches, how to move between them, and when to apply the best approach to the situation. So human-centered design is useful to discover and understand user needs and goals. Activity-centered design is useful to develop tools that enable the completion of tasks and activities. Systems design is useful to encourage systems-level thinking. And genius design can be employed when the designer just needs to rely on their intuition, their skills, and their knowledge. So thank you for viewing and listening. If anyone has any questions, I've included my email address here. Feel free to contact me.